LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So we'll just give it a minute in case people aren't here yet. We have 30 seconds until 8, and then we'll start right on the hour. You can get yourselves comfortable. We'll be here, God willing, every Thursday from 8 to 8:30 Newfoundland time, 8 p.m. that is. Going through Jewish history. It's a crash course. We won't go through everything in detail. We'll go through it slowly, meaning we'll cover a lot of it, but without skipping details. We'll just be brief. And it's 8 o'clock. So we'll begin with a joke, as the custom is to begin with a joke in public speaking. And so there was a child who asked his father, where did we come from? How did the world originate? So my father says, there was this cosmic soup. And he goes to explain the Big Bang Theory and in great detail. And then the child goes to his mother and he says, Mom, how did the world originate? So she tells him the story of Genesis. God created the world in 6 days. He created, Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve on the 6th day. And, it's a whole change of events until today. That's where we come from. And so the child says, but I don't understand. Dad was saying, we come from this cosmic soup, and then the process of evolution, and we come from the apes. We come from monkeys. So the mother says, oh, no, son. He's speaking about his side of the family. Okay, that was supposed to be a joke. So at any rate, I want to welcome everybody. And I wanted to lay down, quote unquote, some ground rules before we begin. Number one, the class will be based on Jewish tradition and based on Jewish historians. You will find discrepancies between what I say, what we'll cover, and what's brought down in other history books. And also, we're going to start from creation. Okay, according to Jewish tradition, we're now in the year 5781 from the creation of the universe. This is not going to be a boring lecture on Genesis, but again, a short historical overview with practical lessons, something we could take and learn from. As we know that the Torah itself is the Hebrew Bible. It's not a history book, but Torah means instruction, a lesson. So what does the Bible begin? It begins with Genesis, Bereshit, describing the 6 days of creation. And that's when the timer began ticking. That's when time was created. Because if God exists, and God is beyond time, why did he create the world at this point in time? Very easy, because the clock only started ticking now when he created the world. This is when he created time. Okay, so let's go through the 6 days of creation quickly, then we'll move to Adam and Eve. We'll try to get through today at least to the flood again quickly. So the first day of creation, everybody knows, God said, let there be light. And there was light, God created light. The second day of creation, God made the sky and he called it heaven. On the third day, God separated the water and the dry land. And also on the third day, God made the plants, grass, trees, shrubs, flowers, etc. The fourth day, God made the sun and the moon, the stars, and everything that's in the heavens. On the fifth day, God made the fish, other water animals, and also birds that fly in the air. Day number 6, now it gets juicy for us. Day number 6, he created all of the other animals, large and small, the animals that walk, animals that creep or crawl on the earth. And towards the end of that 6th day, Hashem created Adam, created man, put a divine soul into a body made from earth, and that is the first human. We know the 7th day, God didn't create anything. On the 7th day, he rested. That's the Sabbath, Shabbat. Right? And that's very interesting, by the way, because there are a number of societies in history, a number of nations that try to change from a 7-day week. You could look this up on Google. In the Soviet Union, they tried systems of 5-day weeks, 6-day weeks. The French tried something else during the revolution, but it never worked. It never stuck. Everybody reverts back to having 7-day weeks. Why? Why does 7 work? Because that's the way God made it. That's God's stamp in creation. Okay. There are many theories as to how the human race began, as we were saying before. Interesting, though, to note is that relatively recently, science concluded that we all come from a common female ancestor, and they actually call her Chava, mitochondrial Eve in English, in recognition of the biblical account. There are 2 main lessons that we learn from the story of Adam and Chava. They were created on the 6th day. We know that they sinned that very day, eating from the tree of knowledge that they weren't supposed to eat from. And then they're kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Ever since then, we are all, so to speak, trying to get back there. There are 2 main lessons from that. We'll speak about them at length today. Number 1, the life of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden before the sin was the utopia, the ideal state. And we all have that in the back of our minds, no matter how good or bad our life is, we always want to go back to a better state. We can't even explain why sometimes. And the second lesson is we see the power of the individual, that one person could change the whole world. So to go now into more detail, this idea that we have in the back of our minds of this is not the way things are supposed to be. It doesn't matter what's going on in our lives. Could be we are being very successful, or God forbid, not successful at all. We always want more. We always want the newest thing, the newest car, the newest iPhone, more success, one promotion, another promotion. Why? It comes from this. It's in our nature that we want to go back to Garden of Eden. We know that there's a higher state of being. I want to go back to that. It's part of our DNA. Yeah. Just 1 second. I need to take a small pause here. I'll be right with you. Sorry, back with you. Okay. So that's the point number 1, that since that's where we come from, we all have that feeling that no matter what's going on in our lives, this is just not it. There's something more. And then point number 2, here, what we're speaking about before, the power of one. Yeah, we know in the 18th century, the world was very into the Marxist idea that the individual doesn't count. It's not about the individual, because there are forces stronger than the individual, economic forces, social forces, that govern all of history. Okay, you can't change them. And that's, of course, communism. But we know now that communism doesn't work. To achieve communism, millions of people were killed, right? Chairman Mao in China killed 18 million Chinese people to bring about the new utopian China. Stalin, he killed between 50 and 60 million people to achieve, communist Russia, Mother Russia. But all those, we know it doesn't work. Look in the Bible. The Bible is very different. Why? Because the stories in the Bible are not about big empires, big nations, about individuals. One person who has influence, one person who affects significant change. The backdrop, the backstory is the empire. Sometimes one person going against the tide, like Abraham, he went against the whole world, who worshipped idolatry. He started spreading the concept of monotheism. There's only one God. Anyway, every story you look at, there's always one individual who's making a significant change. In Jewish tradition, there are 36 righteous people in every generation. But then again, okay, there's 36, but it's a small number. It's always about the few that make that difference. There's a story of Sodom. Abraham lived nearby, and God says to him that he's going to destroy the city. The city doesn't have, it's full of wicked people. Abraham was all about kindness. He can't accept such an idea, so he says, save the city. Maybe there's, even 10 good people. But no, there weren't even 10 good people. God decided to destroy the city. How does the world exist today? Every day there's another issue. If you look in the newspapers, you get depressed very quickly. Now we're in the middle of a pandemic still. The answer is because the good individuals in the world. If you look at the world as a whole, you could see these nations doing that's inappropriate. Every nation has bad news, but there are good people everywhere that are making a difference. Interestingly enough, there's a psychoanalyst, Ernst Becker, and he was an American soldier, and he helped free the concentration camps. And he posits that every individual naturally has a denial of death. We all know that one day, God willing, after a long and happy life, we are going to die, and we won't be able to do the things that we do. And so he says that all our lives, we base our decisions on that. Every decision we make is based on that denial of death. And everything we do is based on that. And in order to succeed, you need to defeat that feeling that comes natural to us. Because otherwise, nobody will get up in the morning. You're going to die. It's depressing. And he says that the Torah gives us the instructions, the commandments to change our way of thinking, to change the way we naturally see things, and not to become depressed because one day we're going to die. The opposite. Realize how much good you could do today. And this is connected to what we're discussing, because he says, this Ernst Becker, he says that Adam, the first man, he wrestled with his mortality after he was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. But he got himself together, and he bounced back. He was able to lead a productive life. He had many children afterwards. It says in the book of Proverbs that the righteous man falls 7 times, but then he gets up. What does that mean? Everybody falls, but it's only the righteous, it's only the special people that are able to get up. We all have our downfalls. Adam was kicked out of Gan Eden. They were used to immortal life. They were used to no sickness. They didn't have to work. They were kicked out and everything changed, but they got back up and they built a family again. They had more children. Also then, this is just before the flood, okay, the generation of Noah, or Noah in Hebrew, that we see the beginning of what's called paganism, idolatry, people worshipping the sun, the moon, the stars, and so on. And one of the great rabbis, Rabbi Chernitsky, points out that man cannot be without God. He's either believing God or fighting against God, but there's no in between. Now they say atheism is also a religion. They also have their own books. They have it became an organized group. I'm not judging at all, but again, Rabbi Chernitsky said everybody has to deal with it at one level. Either you accept it and you believe in God, or you fight against it. He says, why was it that we find that idol worship was so prevalent back in the day? Because they didn't have the headspace to think about God, an abstract God. They were busy hunting, fishing, doing the farming. To believe in the God of the Bible, you have to be able to abstract thinking. It's not a tangible God. That's why the Romans had such an issue with the God of the Bible. They wanted something tangible, something they could relate to, which, by the way, that's one of the explanations. How was it the Jewish nation was able to worship the golden calf right after experiencing so many miracles? Moses leaves for 40 days. Come on, 40 days, he's not there. You go and worship a golden calf. They wanted something tangible to relate to as far as the relationship with God. Before, they had Moses as their leader, a person that connected them directly. Once he was gone, they were missing that connection. Moving on, we come to the times of the flood. Okay, it's 10 generations after Abraham. As I said, we're gonna be brief. So 10 generations after Abraham came Noah, or Noah in English. It's debatable if he was a righteous man or not. There's different opinions amongst the sages. Was he really righteous, or just in his generation he was considered righteous? But had he lived in a different time, he wouldn't have been considered righteous. And at any rate, the flood was not a punishment, God forbid, but the flood was meant to purify the world. The world came to such an extent, to such deprivation. Even the animals were becoming depraved. People were stealing, committing murder, adultery. Was in a very, very low moral and spiritual state. And God brought the flood to purify the world. Why do they say to purify the world? Because we know that in Jewish tradition, water is used for purification. There's something called a mikveh. Mikveh is a ritual bath, quote unquote. Certain natural bodies of water could serve as a mikveh, and the world being flooded brings purification, just like a person achieves a certain level of purification in the body of water. Okay. Maimonides writes, when the related in the context of the flood, that when it looks like there is no hope, as the situation was then, that's when God intervenes, and that was the flood. The world was, as we said, in a great state of deprivation, very low spiritual state, very low as far as morals. And going back to what we were saying before about being able to have abstract thinking, it's very difficult, especially for us today, because we're all distracted with who's going to take the garbage, who's going to pick up the kids for school, what are we going to make for supper. We don't have time to think. And we have the same struggle that people had at the dawn of civilization. Our struggle is to rise above that struggle. Right? The Torah, as we said, it's not a history book. It's about destiny, telling us what happened then, giving us a lesson for now to help us have a better future. To finish off, I saw an insight yesterday. It says that when the Torah says tov, which means good, this refers to the good inclination that we all have. Tov me'od, very good, refers to the evil inclination. So the question, of course, is how could it be? How could the evil inclination be very good? One of the answers is that when we face challenges, when we face obstacles, is in order for us to reach a higher state than before, to become very good. God doesn't send you a challenge just to get back at you. No, the challenge is a stepping stone to go to a higher level. Another insight that I saw, it says that Tov, good, refers to the angel of life. Tov me'od, very good, is the angel of death. So the question is the same. What do you mean very good is the angel of death? Because perfection is the angel of death. The addiction, the being obsessed with perfection, also known as perfection paralysis, that's the angel of death. That you don't want. What you want is to work hard. What you want is to put in the effort. That's tov. That's good. But if you're always striving for perfection, then that's the opposite of good. That's the end of the planned lesson for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, we still have some time. You could drop in a question, comment, concern. I'll be happy to address it. Okay, I don't see any. So thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you, God willing, next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Newfoundland time, until about 8:30 p.m. Have a wonderful night. Shabbat Shalom.